All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you those that are here in person and those that are online. We have an exciting session for you today. A lot of what you saw around Purview in some of the keynotes, we're going to dive a little deeper. We're going to dig into it. We have the Rockstar team sitting over here that's going to come up and show you a bunch of demos. And then hopefully after that, outside will be available for Q&A. So let's dive in. So click ahead. There you go. Thank you. So as many of you have seen over the last 5-10 years, your data has been growing. But also what's changed more recently is it's moved beyond what we call the traditional borders of business. So both in terms of adoption of cloud and multi-cloud, but also with hybrid work. So now data sits in the cloud, it sits on different clouds, and it's also sitting on devices both within your corporate network and outside of your corporate network. So that data is going to continue to grow. And with everything you're seeing going on with generative AI, there's now new types of data being produced as well. Every time you have a conversation with a Copilot or some kind of generative AI app like ChatGPT, you have prompts that are going in. That's a form of data. You have data being accessed. And then you also have output that comes back to you, which is also another form of data. And so that all has to be secured and governed as well. And so when we think about what's going on with the need to secure and govern data, that's starting to increase as well. One of the things we've been hearing from many of you as we've been talking to customers about Microsoft 365 Copilot has been, how do I make sure that all the great data security and governance capabilities that Purview has on Microsoft 365 content and Microsoft 365 data, how do we make sure all of that's applied to the Copilot interactions as well? And it turns out there's a lot of uncertainty around this. There's uncertainty because we don't know what the regulations are yet. And so currently, at least I'd say half of IT leaders are less than certain about the ability to mitigate the risks. And that's partly because all the risks aren't fully known. If you think about what's going on with the regulatory environment, just a couple of weeks ago, the Biden administration released an executive order on the secure and safe use and deployment of AI. Now, that's a high-level, broad-reaching executive order. It's not legislation. And it's going to take years for that legislation to follow. But the regulations are coming. And we're predicting that definitely there'll be some large enterprises out there that may end up being banned by regulators because of non-compliance. And so how do we start to think about this ahead of time? How do we start to get ahead of it? So if you think about what's going on in the market, you've got data that continues to grow, data that's being generated by AI, data that exists now in multiple clouds. You have the need to secure and govern AI, and you have these regulations that continue to evolve. All of that collectively makes this idea of securing and governing the data multifaceted. You've got all these different dimensions you have to work with, both in different clouds, different types of data. And today, many of you are using multiple tools and point solutions to solve the problem. So what we've seen through surveys that we've done is, on average, you're using about 10 different tools to secure and govern data. So that includes everything from data security, information protection, things like e-discovery, things like compliance of communications within your company according to company policy. All of those use cases require different tools. And the challenge with using all these point solutions is you end up with a lot of different silos. You end up with duplicate copies of data. You have to move data back and forth. You have inconsistent classification. That's a big one. If you're using multiple classification engines, the way you classify your data, whether you're doing it automatically or manually, is slightly different, which makes it harder then to provide uniform policy for that data as it moves from one system to another. When you have alerts, you might have redundant alerts coming up, and then the investigation tools might be siloed as well. So all of that collectively leads to more complexity, takes more time to deploy your solutions. You're going to need different skill sets to manage all those different point solutions. Overall cost goes up, and then ultimately, the biggest one here is actually that the security outcomes actually get worse. And so we've done a survey recently where it turned out that the more tools people ended up using, you're solving each solution one by one, but on an aggregate, your actual security outcomes, the number of incidents that those customers saw were actually higher. So we've been looking at how do we simplify this, and so we've been on this journey for many years where we're looking at Purview as a simplified approach to help you secure and govern your data. And so as we think about the vision for where we're going, there's a couple of dimensions across which we want to simplify. So we talk about integrated solutions. I touched a little bit on that. To secure and govern, so not just secure, but also govern your entire data estate. And so when we talk about entire data estate, it means how do you secure all your data wherever it lives? All data being your unstructured data that you're used to in Microsoft 365, but also structured data in things like databases. You might have traditional data that we're used to today, but also now new data that comes from generative AI. And then when we talk about wherever that data lives, that's not just in Microsoft 365, but also in other clouds. So that's sort of where we're headed. And for today's session, we're going to talk about all the innovation we're pushing out along these different lines of dimensions. The last piece I'll leave you with here is what we talk about in terms of these shared platform capabilities. That is absolutely critical to making sure we simplify data security and data governance for each of you so that you've got this unified classification engine, you've got unified policy, unified approach to audit, a unified portal, so the single pane of glass to see all of it. And so you'll see some of that come through as we go through the demos. Now, before I dive in to the demos, I want to show you a customer of ours, Grupo Bimbo. They're one of the largest bakeries in Mexico. They're actually a global company. And what I love about this customer example is they're truly using a lot of the different solutions with that common platform and shared capabilities underneath. So with that, let's just dive in and see the video.
Grupo Bimbo is the largest bakery company in the world. Grupo Bimbo is a deeply human company. The person is central. If the company is not deeply with the people, the company will not work in the correct way. I'm in charge of compliance departments. I'm responsible to identify all the risks to protect sensitive data for the company. We operate in 34 countries and we have different systems in those countries. We need to protect the information related to our vendors, associates, clients, and consumers. The challenge that we have at the moment is to understand the process and the flow of all information, understand the laws and regulations that we need to be in compliance. Microsoft Purview helps us to establish the correct security rule through data loss prevention, focused by department, because if we implement a global DLP rule, we can affect another operation because the laws and regulations are totally different. Microsoft Purview helps us to identify if the information is managed by other applications. We replicated this DLP rule to identify the sensitive information of the company, like R&D, industrial secrets, commercial traits, and BII to protect all the individual's information or vendors' information. The first Microsoft Purview Model Compliance Manager helps us to be aligned with different laws and regulations and frameworks. The second one helps us a lot in order to identify what is the privileged information and then create the DLP rules. Insider risk helps us to alert if any data leak or any data loss event occurs. And finally, we use e-discoveries to identify specific activities by business unit. Microsoft Purview helps us to identify cases when different words could create a harassment into the company. We are working in establish this part of the solution to be preventive for those cases. Grupo Bimbo is more protected and is aligned with all regulations, and nowadays we are working to be preventive with the information that we manage, and the business units feel very comfortable because they identify faster any possible data loss or data leaks event. For our philosophy, deeply human, using Microsoft Purview help the department to be more secure, to be more proactive to protect the information, and then to identify any possible adjustment into the process.
Awesome, you can clap. What I love about this example is a couple of things. One is, it truly shows the power of the platform coming together. So they're using a lot of different capabilities like data loss prevention, insider risk, e-discovery on the compliance side, the compliance manager, communication compliance. And all of that was done by classifying the data once using auto classification, scanning their systems. Now you've got the data classified and labeled. Now you can apply all these different use cases to it, and so they're benefiting from that. The other reason I loved it is they mentioned in it that it allows them to be now more proactive. They can start to look ahead and get ahead of regulations as they come. And then the last one I really love is they talk about being a deeply human company. And Satya's keynote yesterday, the last video really stuck with me about our mission as a company. And so this really aligns with us, where capabilities like communication compliance in particular allows Grupo Bimbo to be more deeply human. So with that, let's dive in. We've got sort of 3 chapters of detail coming for you now. We're going to talk about how do you secure and govern your entire data estate. So as I mentioned, structured, unstructured data, and across multiple clouds. We're going to talk about extending all the goodness of Purview to AI, specifically generative AI, both co-pilots and third party. And finally, how do we use AI-powered security, so Security Copilot, to make the people using Purview more effective as well. So with that, let me introduce my colleague and friend, Rudra Mitra, Corporate Vice President of Purview, up on stage.
Thanks, Hiren. Hello, everyone. My name is Rudra Mitra. I'm the Corporate Vice President of Purview Engineering, and I'm excited to be here today. We have a lot of news to share, so let's dive right in. So let's start with securing and governing your entire data estate. Today's data lifecycle is, of course, complicated. There's many different on-premises and cloud repositories where data resides. And then if you think about the data formats, it's complicated because you have structured data in databases, you have unstructured data in documents and emails. The sheer volume of all of this data, of course, makes it challenging to identify sensitive data and protect it. And of course, it's not getting any easier as the data sphere expands. There are 3 key challenges to take away through all of this. First, as Hiren was talking about, more tools doesn't actually help with data security. In fact, it's the opposite. Customers report that with over 10 plus data security solutions to protect their data, it's not only complex, of course, it's highly resource intensive to manage all of this. Now, the second solution is with protection parity. When you think about the protection controls that go across structured data and unstructured data, often these controls don't equivalently apply to all of these systems. This is where the protection breaks down. And so to give you a specific example, if you think about a structured system where data is marked as sensitive or classified as protected, the receiving system may not understand the data to be such or classified as such. And the protection that was applied in one then just broke down on the other. And then third, as the data sphere continues to expand, it generates blind spots for organizations. These organizations are, of course, striving to make sure they have productivity and data security, but the sheer volume of the data makes it a challenging task. In a recent survey that we ran, CISOs, 83% suggested that they are most concerned about protecting their data across multi-cloud systems. That's a big number. And so at Microsoft, we're of course committed to helping customers secure their data no matter where it lives. And so today we're excited to announce the following capabilities that help expand the protection of Microsoft Purview to more of the data sphere. First, the unified Purview platform now allows customers to gain unprecedented insights into their data, allowing organizations to identify risks much, much faster than before. With new integrated capabilities, we're making it easier than ever before to identify, classify, label, and protect data across the digital estate. Second, we're extending our protection controls, a concept that many of you are familiar with and millions of customers use with our labels and policies for M365 Purview. And we are extending that into structured data now. Data types like Azure SQL, Azure Data Lake Storage, and even Amazon S3 buckets. For the first time with Purview, and quite differentiated in market, end-to-end protection is coming to Purview across structured and unstructured systems. And third, we're enhancing our insider risk detections by adding new signal sources across these infrastructure and, of course, more third-party SaaS apps. Like AWS is under Purview Signals Collection now. You can even get it from Box, Dropbox, and GitHub. Now, to see all of this innovation in action, there's a lot here. I'm going to invite Shilpa on stage. She's going to show us this and how it looks like for the end user and for the admin experience.
Thank you, Rudy. Hello, everyone. I'm Shilpa Ranganathan, and I'm excited to show you all the latest updates to Microsoft Purview. Our team has been working tirelessly on it, and I can't wait to show off all the good stuff. Before we get into demo, I will walk through a quick scenario. So as Rudy mentioned, organizations struggle with inconsistent protections. There are some vendors who provide protections for unstructured data, and then some do this for structured. Yet, there is no single provider today that can do both. So if you take this typical data use pattern here, which is around, you can have your data stores in AWS, then you curate these into structured databases, you run some business intelligence and reporting, you export the data, share it with people, you'll find your protections are broken. That's because many of these point solutions cannot even recognize the protections set by each other, leave alone honoring them consistently. But imagine if this was different. What if you could be rest assured that the protections you put in place will apply consistently, even as the data flows across environments? How cool would that be? That's exactly what we're doing with Microsoft Purview. I'm going to show you this scenario in action where we have multiple different users interacting with sensitive data across different environments. Let's jump into demo. All right, here I'm Nathan. I'm a data engineer. And in my role, what I'm going to do is run query against a SQL database, which contains sensitive information. You can see that it returns all of the information, including sensitive details like bank routing number, credit card, SSN, and so on. That's because in my role as a data engineer, I have the right privileges to curate, access, and perform operations on sensitive information. Now, let's compare the same experience to that of Alice. Alice is an external vendor to the organization with limited data access privileges. Alice's responsibilities are to run non-sensitive reports like customer support reports. Alice explores this table called customers. She can see that there's some confidential data in here, but overall, this looks like the right information to run all of the reports. So I'm going to run the report. And you can see it comes back and tells me I'm unable to connect. And in fact, it tells me that there's some sensitive information here which I do not have access to. Now, as I edit and run this query with non-sensitive fields, I'm easily able to run the reports and continue with my work. Now, if you're wondering how these protections apply to other cloud repositories, I also happen to have access to the source data that lives in Amazon S3 buckets. I'm going to log in. This is the AWS Management Console. And I'm going to go ahead and access this file here, which contains sensitive information. Now, as I run query against it, here again, my access is denied. Ladies and gentlemen, this is for the first time we're able to apply native protections right inside S3.
And Shilpa, you didn't have to go write a different policy in S3 to make this work, right?
No, Rudy, that's the brilliance of it. So what we do here is we take our sensitivity labels and map them to S3 native tags. And then we take our policies and associate them with S3 bucket policies. By creating this binding, we're able to keep these policies in sync all the time, even if as changes happen, and then all your protections are consistent.
That's fantastic.
All right, so moving on in the end user journey. Here, I'm going to be John, who's part of a sales team and accesses customer billing reports. I can have full access to this report because in my role, I have the right permissions. I can see that this report is confidential. Can folks see this? Yep. And all good so far, so I'm going to export this data. When I export this data, this downloads itself as a XLS in my OneDrive. And here again, you can see that the confidentiality is fully maintained. Now, as I share this with other Teams members using Microsoft Teams, you'll see that Teams recognizes that this has confidential data, it has sensitive information, and blocks it. The circle of life is now complete. What you've seen so far is multiple users interacting with sensitive data across different environments, but the policies and protections apply consistently as the data moves. This allows these end users to be secure, but also productive. All of this is powered by our admin experiences that give you full and complete visibility into your entire estate and allows you to extend classifications and corresponding protections across your data estate. This level of automated and unified classifications, labelings, and protections from one single control plane is unparalleled. With that, we'll jump into the next section, which is all about our end users, our Nathans, Johns of the world, will continue to access sensitive information. And by doing that, they might do something risky with it. Security teams need full visibility into these risky activities. And for this reason, we are extending our insider risk management solution with ready-to-use indicators across Google Drive, Box, Dropbox, GitHub, Azure, and AWS. When I look at this alert here, you can see that this is a curated, context-rich, chronological order of risky activities for a user. And wow, now we can enhance this with context across different environments. With this level of context, security teams can now make the right decisions. With that, I'll jump back to slides for a quick recap. What we spoke about today was Microsoft Purview gives you full visibility into your data estate, allows you to apply consistent protections across structured and unstructured data, and surfaces smart alerts that allows you to remediate user risk. Back to you, Rudy.
Thanks, Shilpa. Thanks, Shilpa. That was an awesome demo. All right. We're so hyped to keep the innovation train going. Let's now take a look at extending data security and compliance to AI. So, all of you are hearing about it, the conference is about it. We're living through a transformative time, right? Organizations have, an incredible opportunity to leverage generative AI to reinvent everything they're doing. They can unleash creativity. They can drive now unlocking productivity. They can drive up-leveling skills. It's a time of change. But as you think about all of the possibilities with generative AI, there's of course the other side, which is the data security risk and the compliance challenges that comes with all of this. Let's take a look at an example to make this very real for you. Imagine Contoso a pharmaceutical organization that's thinking about using generative AI to predict and prevent the harmful effects of medications. To do so, Contoso gives AI access to large amounts of clinical data, patient records, and much more. The AI goes to work and comes back with a set of recommendations. So all good so far. But if Contoso doesn't have the right data security and compliance controls, then of course it introduces risk for Contoso. What are these kinds of risks? First, the data that the AI used could be sensitive information, including PII, maybe PHI, and so forth, and could end up violating patients' rights as it works over that data. Moreover, the data now generated by the AI could be vulnerable to data access, data loss, or insider risks. So there's a big issue there. And then, of course, the data that the AI consumes and produces may not comply with the relevant laws and regulations that govern the use of personal data in healthcare, such as HIPAA, GDPR, AI ethics, and more. This could, of course, all create legal penalties and more reputational damage. As you can see, Contoso could have serious consequences for using AI without strong data security and governance controls in place. So as organizations adopt AI, not only do you need to secure the data that the AI is using, you need to also ensure that AI-generated data is also secure and compliant. Now, this is where Microsoft Purview really shines from our journey over the years, securing data and governing data. Today, we're advancing all of that work that we've done to help you secure your AI data, and not just for Microsoft AI, across non-Microsoft AI as well. So we're excited to share that Microsoft Purview can now provide you with comprehensive visibility across your digital estate on the use of AI for Copilot for Microsoft 365 and commonly used consumer AI services as well. This can help you quickly take action to secure your data for your organization. Second, you get extensive data protection through built-in and highly customizable policies with Purview. This lets you control how the data is used and shared with AI through Microsoft Purview. Copilot for Microsoft 365 understands the same sensitivity labels that have existed in Microsoft Purview, strengthening Copilot's data security. And third, we've added compliance controls to help you meet your business and regulatory needs right into Microsoft Purview as well. So Copilot for Microsoft 365, right out of the gate, you can capture evidence with audit. You can govern the life cycle of the data going into the Copilot and coming out as responses from Copilot. You can run data searches on all the data that's associated with Copilot. And you can even monitor the compliance prompts and responses with communications compliance. These are just a few examples, and we're just getting started, and there's a lot more for us to do with Microsoft Purview. Now, just as a quick reminder, Copilot for Microsoft 365 is built on the same comprehensive approach to security, compliance, privacy, and responsible AI, so it's enterprise-ready right out the gate. You can strengthen that comprehensive approach now with Purview data security and compliance. And we'll be extending these capabilities to other Copilots, such as the Microsoft Security Copilot soon as well. The sensitivity labels and compliance capabilities for Copilot for Microsoft 365 are already there today. So you can get started right now with data security and compliance. So I've talked for a while, explained a number of different capabilities that are coming to the protection of AI. But to make it all real, I'd like to invite Erin Miyake on stage. She's going to show you how it works.
Thanks, Rudy. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here today. There's been so much excitement about AI over the last couple of days, and I'm excited to show you how Microsoft Purview can help you securely adopt AI. So we recently announced GA for Copilot for Microsoft 365. So let's start there with the demo to show you how Microsoft Purview secures data in Copilot. All right, so here I am in Microsoft Word, and I've asked Copilot to summarize a file for me, my Ignite talk track. Now I have edit permissions to this file, and I've also labeled it confidential because it contains some pre-release product information. So we can see, just like that, Copilot summarizes the file for me, but not only does it summarize it for me, we can see that this summary that it has generated automatically inherits that confidential label. And this experience also works in the chat experience. So now I'm in Copilot Chat. I've asked Copilot again to summarize the same file for me, the Ignite talk track. And we can see that it summarizes this file for me. And again, the summary that it's generated has inherited this confidential label that we can see the original file is labeled with.
And Aaron, you didn't have to do anything. It just automatically happened.
Exactly. So we'll switch back over now to the slides. Because in addition to securing data in Copilot, we're also enabling compliance controls. So now all of those Copilot interactions will be logged for auditing purposes. You can also retain, identify, and collect those same Copilot interactions for investigation or litigation purposes. And then finally, something I'm super excited about is you can identify potential risky business conduct violations in Copilot using communication compliance. So we can see in communication compliance, I come in here, I'm an investigator, I see that this user, Adele Vance, has used Copilot to inquire about a top secret Project Dragon, and she's doing this for her own personal financial gain. So maybe she's looking for some insider information that she can use to trade. So this violates her organization's policies, but we're able to detect it and flag it and investigate it in communication compliance. Now, as Rudy mentioned earlier, it's important to safeguard all of that data that's used in generative AI, and particularly the data that's used in non-Microsoft generative AI. And this is where adaptive protection can help. So we released adaptive protection earlier this year, and what it allows you to do is automatically tailor the data security controls that are applied to users based on the risk levels of those users. So if you have some users who are doing a bunch of risky activity, you can block and prevent potential risky activity, while other users at your organization who aren't risky can maintain their productivity. So let's walk through an example of how this can be applied for generative AI. Let's say that we have a user, Lisa, and Lisa's working on a top secret project. And not only that, but she's been performing some risky activities over the last couple of days. So this system has assigned her with an elevated risk level. So now Lisa goes in, she starts her day, she decides that she wants to summarize her notes from that top secret project in Bard. She pastes those notes into Bard, and she's blocked. So we can see Microsoft Purview Data Loss Prevention blocked her from entering that information into the non-Microsoft generative AI app. And that's because Lisa is an elevated risk user. But other users in Lisa's organization can continue to leverage all of those benefits that Rudy talked about for productivity and creativity. So this flexibility really allows you to balance the productivity of your workforce with data security in AI. All right, now let's switch gears real quick and see how it all comes together. Today, we're super excited to announce the private preview of the AI Hub. So in the AI Hub, you can gain visibility into that AI activity that's taking place at your organization and drive data security and compliance for AI. So let's dig into the analytics report that's available in the AI Hub. So in this report, you can see that you get aggregated insights on the generative AI activity taking place in your organization. So you can see, for example, the total prompt activity taking place over time and look at the trend line for that activity. You can also see the sensitive data that's flowing through those prompts and which sensitive data is most prevalent, as well as the count of users using generative AI, both Copilot and non-Microsoft generative AI apps. So this level of visibility into both the content and the user context really helps you understand the AI activity patterns taking place in your organization so you can choose the best course of protection. From within this view, you can even drill deeper into the event level details for those AI activities. And you can see the time and the date, the user who performed those activities, the specific types of sensitive information involved, as well as the generative AI app used. And we've made it super easy for you to get started with safeguarding the data in AI with easy to use out-of-box customizable policies that can be set up in just a couple of clicks. So you just click a couple of buttons and you're off to the races. So before I hand it back over, just wanted to show you a quick summary of everything that's available today. So we talked about how you can gain visibility into AI activity using the AI Hub. We also showed you how you can safeguard your data in both the inputs and the outputs used in AI. And we also touched on all of those compliance controls available. And all of this is to help you securely use AI. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Rudy.
Thanks, Erin. I mean, that level of visibility and control and data that's going into AI and responses coming out from AI, we think it's going to be a game changer for data security teams, particularly as this wave of AI transforms every realm of business. Okay, that product walkthrough was fire, but we're not done yet. We've got more, okay? So our final set of announcements highlight the Purview capabilities that we are bringing to Microsoft Security Copilot. Now, as you heard in Vasu's keynote earlier this morning, the era of AI is transformative for security teams. It's going to be helpful to provide end-to-end visibility across platforms, concise alert summaries, and natural language responses, speeding up investigations for investigation teams and catching what others might miss, and strengthening the team skill set for security and compliance teams. As I mentioned earlier in the talk, SOC teams face challenges with this incredibly fragmented tool landscape around data security. And Hiren mentioned this as well. The research shows that customers that have more tools end up, somewhat contradictorily with 2.8 times more risk of data leakage than those that have fewer tools. Data security admins struggle with the 50-plus alerts that they're getting on a daily basis, and with most saying that they can hardly get through 60% of those, and the rest just get left untriaged. And compliance admins are spending most of their time going through tons and tons of content, reviewing this content, and they need to learn technical skills for basic jobs, such as running keyword query languages against large data sets. So today, we're just so hyped to announce Microsoft Purview capabilities in Security Copilot, listening to these challenges and attempting to address these challenges. What we're announcing today are two new areas of Microsoft Copilot, Security Copilot, now having Purview skills. The first is the standalone Security Copilot experience that you've already seen. But brand new today, we are also announcing embedded capabilities right within the Purview solutions. So we've got to show you all of this to make it real, and to do that, I'd love to invite Tala on screen. He's going to start walking you through this.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Super excited to be here, but I've been told short on time, so I might do a little audible and get through some key pieces that I want to make sure I get through today. So before we get started, just to level set a little bit on the kind of experiences I'm going to show you. Let's go to 7, make sure I can log in. So the first is the standalone experience. So this is all about making sure you have tasks that require breadth-first approach that Copilot can go pull onto those solutions and get you the right context that you need. So let me show you what that looks like. I come into let's say I'm a data security admin. I come into my standalone experience and I want to see how to get started. I've got my coffee, I'm ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Copilot, what are the DLP alerts that I should focus in on today? Copilot goes to work, gives me a set of alerts I should go look at, but curiously, they're all low severity alerts. Why is that? Why is Copilot telling me to look at these low severity alerts? Maybe there's something going on. So I'll play along. I'll actually take one of these alerts and I'll ask it if it can summarize the details in that alert. And when I get the summary, it gives me all the relevant information. It'll go in, it'll fetch all the details around the policy match, the files at risk, the SITs that might be the sensitive information types that are involved. But what's really curious, and I'm going to try this because Shilpa tried this. I'm going to try this thing out too, see if it works out. What you see, the very last sentence is what got me curious. It says, additionally, this user, Martin, is marked as a high-risk user in Insider Risk. I mean, that's just mind blown. I started with a low severity DLP alert. Copilot's smart enough to draw attention to it. And then it tells me it's because the user behind that alert is a high-risk alert in IRM. The plot has thickened. So now, let me get back in here. Now I'm really ready to play along. Now I'm going to ask it, okay, can you summarize the risk with Martin B? I don't say Insider Risk Management. I'd say just summarize the risk with Martin B. And it goes in and look at just the wealth of information that it finds for me. The user information, it's a high severity, there's active alerts on the user, I've got a policy match, I've got sequential activity. Sequences are one of the most powerful high fidelity alert detections that we have in Insider Risk Management. And a quick shameless plug, we're doing another session, Shaker and I, later today about data security, go beyond DLP. We'll talk more about sequences in that session as well.
And Tala, what's magical about all of this is you sort of went across solutions and didn't get stuck across those boundaries.
That's exactly it. That's what you want your personal AI assistant to do. You want to be able to blur the line between solutions so that it gets you the right insight to make that timely and informed decision.
That's awesome.
That's the power of Copilot. Now let me switch back over to the slides, and I'm told that you do that magically at this point. There we go. So that's a little bit about the immersive or the standalone experiences, and that's just touching the surface of what's possible. This is a list of all the different prompts that you can do with Copilot. Now I want to emphasize something that Charlie said in his keynote today. This is so much more than a chatbot. This is your personal AI assistant. You talk to it in natural language, but it gets you the insights that you need. That's the power. Now let me shift gears a little bit and talk quickly. Ooh, look at that timer. Okay, I'm gonna just audible and keep going. Couple of quick touches on some of the embedded experiences that we have across the work. So this is in DLP. The same kind of summary is gonna be available to you at your fingertips. You click on it, and the same kind of cross-solution boundary is completely blurred. In this summary, again, you see that the risk or the alert is low severity, but Insider Risk has this user marked as a medium risk user, so you know where to go look. Same thing is also available. Oh, that's cool. Same thing is also available in Insider Risk Management. You go into that, you're looking at this beautiful view of the alerts. You can actually ask Copilot to give you this natural language summary of that alert. It'll do that for you as well inside the Purview portal. Let me shift gears a little bit really quickly and get over to the compliance admins. So communication compliance, which lets you look at the breadth of communication to understand communication sentiment, any kind of issues with that. You can now, instead of having to go through just heaps and heaps of communications and documents related to that specific alert, you can ask Copilot to give you a contextual summary. So here you see a summary, for example, on a potential gift and entertainment violation related to maybe your company policy. And e-discovery, right? So we know how much it takes to actually go through, just comb through literally hundreds, if not thousands of documents or find the right context. This is something that's made for generative AI. So you're talking about taking work that could be hours, days, or weeks for your paralegal to do down to seconds with Copilot. And it's not just a summary, it's a contextual summary related to the kind of case that you're working on in e-discovery.
And that deserves a round of applause.
That deserves a round of applause. Thank you for that, Rudy. I was keeping count of how many applauses my peers got. I didn't get one, so thank you for that, Rudy. Appreciate that. Then last, certainly not least, the hardest part about e-discovery is the discovery bit. And that requires you to understand complicated keyword query languages and get trained up on that, type that up. Again, with Copilot, we just make that seamless for you. Natural language, tell it what you want to look for. It'll help you not just refine your query, but click of a button, it'll translate that into keyword query language, and boom, you're off. That is the power of Copilot. And that's just a quick summary, by the way, of what we have. Please take a look. All this stuff is available in private preview now. Back to you, Rudy.
All right. Thanks. We're in overtime of this game, so I'm just going to say thank you. Thank you to the team. Hiren, invite you back up to close us out.
Thank you, Rudy.
You know, one of the favorite parts of my role is just watching the team come together on this. As you saw, there was so much innovation. There's more breakout sessions coming. For people in your organization that are using the products, try the free version. You can start to play with a bunch of this stuff today. And then here's a list of all the breakout sessions. So again, thank you all for your time. A huge thank you to Rudy and the team over here for doing all the work over the last 6 months to bring this to you. And have a great Ignite.